Hello students, welcome to your television adaptation class. My name is Mrs. Hannah Varden and I am your lecturer for television adaptation for this semester. I'm sure you are wondering and asking yourself, what is television adaptation? Well, hopefully as time goes on, we will all learn together, we will all get a deeper understanding of what adaptation is, what it represents, how it helps us in storytelling, and how it helps us in our script writing, and in our lives as filmmakers. Yeah. All right, so we just go straight into it. Sorry. All right, so like I said before, this is adaptation for television. A look into the meaning of the words used to define adaptation aids us in opening a path of understanding the entirety of what adaptations really are, and also helps us in the subsequent critiques on them. Okay. This is the dictionary definition from the Merriam-Webster's. The first one says that the act or process of adapting, the state of being adapted. And then the second one, which is even more interesting, says something that is adapted, specifically a composition rewritten into a new form. And that is what we'll be looking at most of the time in this class. Okay, we'll be looking at different types of stories, prose, novels, screenplays, and how we can adapt them as writers, for the screen. So adaptation is to make fit as for a specific or a new situation, like a new use of something. So the work is already there. Let's say it's a story. The story is already there. Somebody has written a story. Somebody has written a prose. And you like it, but you would want to adapt it into your own. Okay? So that's what this class is about, is adapting stories that already exist and making it our own. And it's often by modification, of course. You have to remodify the existing material into what you want it to be. Adaptation is necessary, to the functionality of society. And of course, there will be no progress if you are not adapting things, if there's no change. There's a saying that the only constant thing in life is change. And that is very true, because day in and day out, we are experiencing new things. We are, there's a lot of changes around us. And if there's no change, that means that society becomes very stagnant and very boring. There's no improvement. You get to see only just one thing, throughout your life. But once there's change, you get to appreciate the different perspectives of life, and then the different perspectives of how things can be. Okay, and that's also very refreshing for us. It's refreshing for society, because then there's constant change. There's always something fresh. There's always something different to look up to. While it may seem that the evolution of books to film adaptations to booming franchise may be recently trending with the accelerator of blockbusters such as The Hunger Games. We have stories like The Twilight that has been adapted into films. We have Harry Potter, of course, that is very huge success. We have so many stories that has been adapted. Okay, they originally started as screenplays, or they started as prose, and then somebody took them and adapted them into screenplays for us to enjoy. And of course, adaptation has been a fundamental part of the advancement of the media. And we can't, like I said before, we can't escape, you know, adapting. Is part of us, it's part of society, because things are always changing, things are always improving. We are always improving on things, the way that we think, the way that we structure things, the way that we appreciate things, the way that we enjoy things. They keep changing day in and day out. Something that people used to enjoy maybe in the 80s is not the same thing as we have it now. Okay, so society is just made up of changes and remodifications, and and even more changes, so that we get to appreciate and enjoy them. So adaptations transcends across all forms of media, and of course the arts as well, like novels. We have paintings. You can have paintings that are repainted, like we have the Mona Lisa that has been repainted so many times. So many artists have tried working on reworking on them. We have films that has been readapted. We have TV shows, TV programs. We even have stage plays, that has been adapted into new forms and for us to enjoy. So you would ask yourself, what makes an adaptation a multifaceted topic? Is the ability for us to incorporate it into different platforms, that is, into different mediums. Okay, so you can have a prose. Somebody has an original prose, and then one person can decide that I want to adapt this as a stage play, and then another person can also decide that this thing is interesting, I can adapt it into a screenplay. Somebody can read it, have an imagination about something, and say that, okay, I want to make a painting out of it. So that's the beauty of it, that you can recreate, you can remodify into different mediums. So it's not stagnant. You can adapt anything at all, whether it's a prose, or it's a piece of art, and then into different forms. So obviously into different platforms, whether it's television, whether it's film, whether it's painting, drawing, all kinds of things, and all kinds of mediums for people to enjoy. So adaptation can take different and many forms. And of course, the common misconception is that the goal of adaptation is to produce a copy of its source. That is not true, and it's not always the case. It's not always the case that you have to take a piece of work, and then let's say there's you have an original prose, and then you take that piece of work and you have to just go strictly according to what the author has written. Okay, it's not always like that. Sometimes, yes, as a director, as a writer, you want to um, you want to play it safe, okay, but then I think that the beauty of adaptation basically is the freshness, is the new perspective that you as a director, you as a creative person wants to bring, you know, to life. You want to bet something new. So let's say you've read a very nice story, you've read a very nice prose, and you want to adapt it. It doesn't mean that you should, of course, you should go strictly according to what the writer has written. Okay, you can do that. You can decide that, okay, I want this story is very nice, is original, and I want to adapt it strictly. Okay, very soon we'll come to the types of adaptations that we have. But for me, I think the beauty of it is also introducing that different perspective, that newness, to the story that you are adapting. So the purpose of your adaptation dictates the final outcome. Okay, so you can decide that, okay, I want to incorporate 40%, 20% of my own ideas into something, into an original prose, or I want to introduce 20% of my own ideas into this material that I have taken, to adapt, and it's accepted. There's nothing wrong with it, of course. You can always do that. It is the final result of what elements of the source text the writer or director decides to focus on through the form of another medium. It dictates what the limitation of the final products are, as different mediums provide different opportunities for expression. Okay, let's say you have a prose, okay, and you want to, or let's say you've taken a Shakespeare story and you want to adapt it. What I'm trying to say here is that the final outcome of your work depends on the medium that you want to use. Okay, so let's say if you're adapting it into a stage play, the final outcome is going to be different from if you were adapting it to a screenplay, because the two mediums are similar, but they are not the same. I hope you're getting what I'm trying to say. Okay, take your time to understand and appreciate what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say is that when you take a source material, okay, whether it's a prose, whether it's a screenplay, whether it's a story, whether it's a piece of art, the final outcome of what you're going to get, it depends on the medium that you want to use in translating your vision, in translating and how you want us to appreciate what you're giving to us. Okay, so you've taken this original source material, you want to you want to remodify it, you want to adapt it. How you adapt it for television is not the same thing as adapting it for film. Okay, so you have to know the different means of communications for these different mediums to be able to communicate effectively to your audience. All right. So like I said, different mediums provide different opportunities for us in terms of how we express ourselves, how we want to translate the work, and how we want people to appreciate the different perspective that we are trying to bring into the work. There are hundreds of publishers, and each has a different type of projects that they would like to publish. This is also a very important thing. It's also a very important thing as a director or as a writer that wants to adapt somebody's work. Okay. Different publishers have different terms and conditions as to how they want you to handle their work. Of course, at the end of the day, it's their work. It's not yours. It's somebody's work, and you just have to have a very strong bargaining power. Okay. And of course, all publishers are looking for something that can bring them profits. Okay, if so, something that is marketable and something that can bring in profits, to them. So if you're looking at adapting somebody's work, you're also looking at how to present it, how to make it marketable, how they can benefit from it, as well as how you yourself as the writer, or you yourself as the producer or the person who is adapting this source material can also benefit from the work. Most books are not just adaptable, okay? There are some stories that, to be honest, you can't adapt them, okay? Especially as screenwriters, sometimes you read something that is very, very interesting. Of course, you can never say never, but there are certain stories that it just doesn't fit for the screen, and you would want to be very, very careful in sourcing your stories and how and the medium that you want to put them on. Okay, so you always have to think. You always have to get advice. You always have to brainstorm. You always have to talk to people. It's not a one-man business, okay? You always have to get different opinions on what people think and how they appreciate. Are they appreciating the source material the same way as you are appreciating it? There are certain stories that, there are certain novels that look very great, very interesting, very insightful when you read them, but they didn't really make very good films, okay? Or people didn't really enjoy them when it was translated to the screen. So most of the time when you want to adapt, you also want to be very, very careful, okay? So that you don't run at a loss. You have to look for stories that are vibrant, stories that are relatable, stories that are screen worthy. That's the word I want to use here. Stories that are screen worthy. Okay, stories that when you can have a clear picture of how you want to visualize them, how you want to translate them onto the medium or the type of media that you want to use. Most people's true stories or biographies aren't cinematically interesting or commercial. Like I was saying before, maybe you've read about a personality and you think, oh, this guy is a great guy. This guy is a very interesting person, But you have to be careful. The person might be very interesting off screen, okay, or whatever you read about the person might look very, very interesting to you, but it's not the same thing as, putting it on the screen. You can put somebody on the screen that doesn't look so interesting. You can have somebody that, is very boring and people get tired of watching them. Nobody's interested in watching them. But of course, these people have very great personalities. They have very interesting stories, and you feel like, oh, this is like really interesting. But then you put it on the screen and it's a different ball game altogether. So you always want to be careful in, in sourcing, in selecting the material. And you have to make sure that it's cinematically interesting. And of course, the most important thing is that it's commercial, because you're making the film, you're telling your story, of course, for people to enjoy, but also there's the bigger picture of making money out of the story, to profit from your hard work. At the end of the day, you should be able to enjoy from, all the hard work that you've put into your work. And you have to be realistic about your material, so that it will be visual or cinematic enough, to be worthy of an adaptation. Like, it's just the same thing that I was trying to explain to you before, that try and make your stories interesting. Okay. Look for stories that are interesting. Look for stories that are screen worthy. Look for things that people will be interested in, because if you're not careful, you go and you have a very you will think that you have, oh, this story is very nice, okay, but then people don't appreciate it. It's because you have a different perception of how people were going to appreciate it, and then at the end of the day, it didn't work out just as you visualized it. So like I said before, every time you want to adapt, of course, filmmaking or any other form of media is not a one-man show. It's not a one person. You always have to ask for advice. You always have to work in a team. You have to bounce ideas. You have to brainstorm, and then you come out, with what you want to have as your final project. Yeah. So I hope that you've enjoyed today's lesson. We will end here. The next time we are going to learn about how to adapt novels to plays. Okay, and then we will continue our lesson from there. So I wish you guys all the best. Have a nice day and take care of yourselves. Bye.
Wait, does it?
Yeah.